Hello, friends. Hi, Emily.
Jamie.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
I am good. I have one of these chats under my belt, so I'm feeling good. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody. This is the second chat to the Rooted in Practice Summit. And today we are featuring Emilee Fernandes, a friend of mine and a conscious growth expert that is going to bring us some wonderful nuggets of information. So, real quick, before I fully introduce Emilee, I want to mention that the Rooted in Practice Summit really is about feeding the practitioner first from the inside out. How we grow is going to be through a holistic lifestyle. So, we're talking today about movement, hydration, nutrition, spirituality, self-care. The really cool aspect that Emilee is bringing today is kind of the interworkings of all of that. Her talk is going to be specifically on the conscious operating system of leadership. And this is going to be a little dive into Emilee's world and kind of how this came about, but of course, how it's going to help us as practitioners as well. So, a couple of quick reminders. We do have a drawing going on. The HSA, the Holistic Spa Alliance, is going to be launching their foundation membership coming up in June, and we are going to draw one lucky winner to 3 months in the membership.
Mm.
So if you visit the website, specifically look for HSA membership. And by the way, I'm Jaime. I'm the founder of the Holistic Spa Alliance. If you haven't seen me enough on your feed to know that yet, welcome to my community, which is holistically based spa practitioners and wellness practitioners. So, without any further ado, let's get into the talk today. So, Emilee. Emilee is a business strategist, conscious leadership consultant, and she works at the intersection of identity, intuition, systems, and scale. So amazing for us as independent practitioners, but anybody listening is going to get so much from this. So, Emilee, share a little bit more about who you are and what originally pulled you towards this work.
So my work is, in a nutshell, helping founders, CEOs, various leadership teams identify this sort of unseen friction that limits their growth potentials in their businesses, in their creations, in their movements forward, whether it's in leadership or decision making, team dynamics, or operations. And this can be applied to your own life. Like if you don't have a team, guess what? If you have a family, you have a team. Jamie knows this well as I work closely with Jamie and I'm close to Jamie's family. It's really that foundation, which we'll get to throughout this talk, that allows us to be able to really expand and grow as leaders. And so my work blends those intuitive insights, as Jamie said, with this sort of strategic business consulting side of it to help leaders and organizations really evolve how they operate, not just increase their output. And to me, this work came as a bridge because we recognize that strategy alone will not get us where we want to go. It's taking that intuitive way of really embodying who you actually are at the core and allowing it to become the future of your business structure. And so it gives us an opportunity to create growth that is sustainable. Because what we see inside of this container is that people stay stuck. They stay stuck in patterns that they are fully aware of because awareness alone does not create that safety for them to change. And most people think that transformation happens the moment that you realize something, because I think that's been what we've been told is if you just have the awareness of it, we can shift it, we can change it. But the real work begins at our identity, and that feels vulnerable. And in that space of consciousness, the subconscious attachments are always are being asked to let go of really what's familiar. And these patterns are rarely random. They were once really intelligent and they kept us safe or they kept us in, our work or our ability to sustain whatever it was that we created. Oftentimes it's overworking, projected for approval, people pleasing, protected our belongings, control, protected our safety, being needed, created our significance, and saying small, protected our visibility. And so even when someone consciously says, I want more success, I want more alignment, I want more more peace. Like I want more impact. I want more expansion. Another part of them is still emotionally committed to that identity that helped them to survive that part of themselves. And that to me is why people can know better and still repeat the same cycles over and over again. And honestly, I see it especially in high performing women and leaders because they become this, you know, exceptional force at functioning at such a high level. And they're able to really allow these patterns to pull within them. I think that's the power of the woman is this able to just disconnect and be able to just go forth and take care and do the things. But that disconnection from themselves is what lands them in this space with my work. They can build businesses while abandoning their own needs and lead teams while they're emotionally exhausted, essentially holding everyone else while losing that connection with their own center. But then that shift happens where this awareness has to become this embodiment. And when someone becomes willing to pause long enough to ask themselves, like, who am I allowed to be without this pattern? Or what am I without this role, without being so needed all the time or even proving? I think that's really where this conscious growth talk really begins. It's not at information, it's at that core of their own identity.
We are. And I can't stress enough that whether you are like high level CEO type of leader or you're just a leader within your private practice, it is
Mhm,
important to get to that self-worth,
mhm,
identity, authenticity in ourselves. So no
mhm,
matter where you are in business, I think you're an intricate piece. I mean, I can't share that enough. I couldn't shout that enough from the rooftops, especially after working with you and being able to identify and understand and really gain clarity in order to move through the processes needed to sometimes
mhm.
uncover or see patterns that when you're so close to, they're not always obvious to us until you share them and it's like, oh, yeah, I see that, I know that, but we need that person to help us identify that sometimes. Tell us
Mhm.
what the conscious operating system of leadership means, the talk of this summit for today. What does that mean?
hmm A lot of people talk about capacity. We talk about how we want to regulate our nervous systems and we want to do all of those things, but beyond those applications of it, the consciousness of the person of who you are in an innate level of who you were made to be on a blueprint sense has so many I don't even want to call them blocks, but just so many detours, so many reroutes, so many programs, so many structures that we've built up to almost protect ourselves from becoming that good. There's a lot of stories that we tell ourselves. There's a lot of opportunities to be able to be hooked into specific triggers and things that are happening in our realities that keep us from that most divine infinite self. This opportunity to become who you were meant to be. And you might know this level of impact, but because you've taken yourself and put you so far on the outside of your own life, you don't have that same sense of resonance and the experience that you are living out is watered down, and yet you still want more, and inside, I think we all know that there's more. Like I have this yearning to be creating more and to experiencing more, to be able to receive more, but it's so far outside of ourselves. We feel like it's so far away. Today's outcome is really about being able to say, okay, I recognize my point in capacity, but I also recognize my blocks to embodying that sense of myself, and then being able to lead every layer of my life in terms of a redirection so that I can have more impact, more wealth, more abundance, more time freedom, more wellness, even. So I think that it's taking that step of awareness that so many people talk about and really recognizing where we've built these structures and these stories within us that keep that anchored down.
This is so interesting because our first summit conversation was around movement and mindset. And she
Mhm,
went a lot into awareness and how
mhm,
that plays such a pivotal role into how we make decisions when we're aware, when our mindset is mindful, specifically applied to movement. But this segues beautifully into what you're talking about today because people stay stuck in patterns that they're fully aware of. Like, why do we do that? And I asked a version of that question to her, but not only that question, what's the difference then between knowing something and actually changing it? Like, where does that breakdown or that block happen?
mhm. It's really this. this layer of this foundation, this understanding of awareness without embodiment only becomes an observation. And so people
Yeah.
become incredibly self-aware, but still emotionally loyal to their same identities, behaviors, and nervous system responses. And so essentially, they're still operating at that same consciousness. They're not digging into that subconscious space to understand really why I'm operating this way. You can know that you're abandoning yourself and that you no longer want it, but still do it. And that deeper shift happens when that awareness becomes integrated into decisions and boundaries, leaderships, responsibilities, and our self trust. And the real shift happened for me when I realized that awareness alone is not going to create the transformation. Because intellectually, in that sense of our consciousness on the surface, we can understand our patterns for years and yet still live inside of them. I knew what I was doing. I could see I was overworking. I could see that I was proving my worth. I could see that I was rescuing people. The constant pull towards that external validation and responsibility was so big. But seeing it and changing it are two very different things. And one requires safety, one requires the opportunity to be outside of yourself, Jaime. Like you said, it's like I can see all my own stuff, but the minute that I take a step back and I pull myself outside of myself to look at it with a discerning lens, but the trick is that people often don't go back in the
Right.
deeper realization. They stay outside of themselves,
Mhm.
right? So it's like I'm out here and I'm still looking at myself and I'm like, okay, I'm going to create separation of the whole instead of creating unity with these forces within myself, whether it be the balance of masculine and feminine, this doing versus being, this understanding of how I have created this. There's this opportunity for unity to come in. And the willingness to become someone unfamiliar to yourself requires absolute faith.
How do you
And
move from that? Sorry to interrupt you. I'll let you
yeah,
finish.
go ahead. Nope, you go. You
Okay, I was
ask.
just going to ask how you move from that observer. Like, what are the steps or what is some of the process? I mean, gosh, yeah, can you condense that
Yeah, we
into
can
the
just knock
hour?
it right down
So
right
even
now.
if it's in its most
No,
summarized, and we'll keep
I got
moving from
it.
there, but
Sure. I think it's this ability to be uncomfortable.
mm,
That is, I believe it is one of the biggest superpowers that I have ever been given in my life that I lend to other people through this work is the ability to be uncomfortable, to be able to look at yourself and say, hey, I'm triggered. I'm feeling something, and I'm going to hold enough space for it in this experience so that I can move through it with absolute faith. And knowing this sense of perception of knowing that everything that I'm experiencing is actually a part of the process. In our group call this morning, I had a community call with my little fam in this world, and most of them are business owners and founders and creators. And there was a huge conversation around this opportunity of the experience being the process and all of the beliefs, perceptions, and judgments that someone holds on this part of their experience is going to be the factor of them being able to make it or not. And it's my job to be that courageous force, to lead first, to go first, to say, I got you. We can do this. I see it. I'm going to hold it. And you're just going to kind of come along at first. And borrowing that sense of that with someone else then gives you that sense of feeling safe, feeling heard, feeling like, okay, I got this and I can do that. But the biggest trip up, I think, for most people in this space is that they don't have enough faith to wait for the reality to catch up to the work that they're doing. So many
mm,
people are doing all the right things. I see it all the time in this work. Everyone is doing the right things. They're like, I do this, I do this, I do this. But it's also in this capacity of being really wide and not deep. And so we're hitting surface levels. We're not hitting the depths of that consciousness, of that subconscious programming underneath of it. And that faith is sort of that first step that says, okay, while everything else externally looks the same right now, I can dig in and be patient enough knowing that this is exactly what I want. This is the direction that I want to go in. And truly ask yourself, can I hold the line before the reality of my receipt arrives? If it is true that everything moves from a formless place to form, if we're creating it in our thoughts, if we're creating it through our nervous system regulation, if we're creating it through a frequency, it takes time for it to become a physical reality. And that time factor is really up to you. I feel like the space between that is really about the ability to hold the faith, to do the identity work, to be able to clear the programming, to be able to, dig in, get triggered, move quicker back, come back. It's always two steps forwards, one step back. Keep moving and continually shifting into this space of what it's supposed to be. It's can you hold the vision while it still exists in the formless space? Can you stay rooted in the unknown long enough for the creation to actually take shape? And that is where courage is born. I've just been practicing it for a really long time. And because expansion is really uncomfortable. And I think you can attest to that, Jamie, how much, you've expanded this last little bit. And that visibility is uncomfortable and that leadership can be uncomfortable and changing your identity is uncomfortable. But that discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong and has to be fixed. It's just that the consciousness and the embodiment is learning how to hold more.
Absolutely. And for me, like leaning into that faith piece, leaning into the faith that it's going to catch up, right?
Mhm.
Working through things, bouncing back, as you said, and holding that space, holding that faith that, okay, this will come full circle for me, or I'm going to
Mhm.
move into this or through this, even though I am really uncomfortable.
Mhm.
First live Zoom is a great example. Started out really high nerves, but I had to take my thoughts captive. We talked about this in the previous, and of course, this is all happening internally, like in my mind, like you can do this, breathing through it, but
Yeah,
waiting for the body to catch up to the knowing, right? Just as an example, that's the faith piece we're talking about. And then,
for
of course,
sure.
it goes beyond that. But
Because
what,
that nervous response isn't saying don't do this. It's just
right?
saying, wow, we are in a place where we haven't done this, before or in a while, or I really have to work my way through it. And I think in a very small, tangible level, that's something people could resonate. And the truth is that everything is only about the energy that you give to it. And so that's your power. When people feel powerless in their experience, it's like, wait, I can make this same experience good or bad. I can flip the coin. I can say it's heads or tails. I'm in control of that. And I can create the intention. I can create the experience. I can create every part of how this feels. And that's my power in how I decide and discern what this is going to be about. I can't control the outcome. I can't control what it becomes, but I can control how I see it, what it means about me as a person, or what it means about my impact in the world.
Exactly. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it afraid. And an
Mhm.
example you gave once, or a metaphor that you used, was a stone. On one side of the stone, we'll just continue with this Zoom example. Like, I'm nervous. I'm afraid to do this. I'm going to say the wrong things. That was on this side of the coin,
Mhm.
stone. But if I turn that stone over, what is the opposite of that? We're going to get through this and we're going to have an amazing conversation. We're going to give so much knowledge to people. I'm going to become more confident as the Zoom goes on. And the next one is going to be easier. And the next one is going to be easier. So just knowing that there's two sides to every
Mhm.
feeling, situation, whatever it may be, do it afraid and move through it until that confidence becomes reality, really.
For sure.
When then did this become personal for you? What was your first domino or moment where something just clicked and you were like, this is it? This is my work.
Yeah, I think it always for me was that I could see patterns of things long before, in other people, long before I could see them in myself. I was
Mhm.
really good at doing all of the work for and with everyone else, guiding everyone else to their things. I was operating at an extremely high capacity at this time in my life. I was extremely intuitive. I was deeply driven, but underneath it, I was really conditioned to like proving myself and overholding and overperforming and trying to to really create this like worth to output association. And there were just things I couldn't strategize my way out of. For years, I believed that the things that were holding me back were really outside of me. The timing, the pressure, the circumstances. Every time I wanted to grow my business, I got pregnant and had another baby. I was like, what is this? Why do they keep calling me back home? Like, this is insane. Um, it was really this demand that came in first. And I was building, I was leading, mothering, creating, holding. I owned and operated two spas. I transitioned into teaching and training. I created different methods and frameworks through this process. And eventually that work was bringing me into the space of leadership consulting and conscious business strategy as people were saying, I want to forex my income, but I've hired this industry coach and this industry coach and this guy and this guy, and I've done all the things. And I just feel like I'm not getting what I want out of this. It was empty. It was absolutely empty because the intentionality of it was so far off of the identity. There was a lot of worth stories in this. There was a lot of wounding. And the truth was for me that no matter how much strategy I learned in order to serve other people in this space, or even, how capable I viewed I was, my internal foundation wasn't extremely solid. And the expansion never felt really safe to hold in that next level. And I really had to confront the ways that I was doing that so I could lead other people through that. I stopped seeing leadership as this performative part of my life. I had performed my whole life. I was a high level elite athlete. I was a straight A student. I was super good girl, good, 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 all the way to the core. And I really valued that way of being good and living a good life. But there came a point where I recognized that living this good life wasn't going to get me what I wanted, that my capacity to hold everything that was so magical was filled with everyone else's shit. And it was not that I had to earn having a great business or earn having a great thing. It was so innate to me. It was my ability requiring me to like hold my family, hold this harmony, hold this dynamic of a masculine and feminine nature. And only then when I learned how to do that, and thankfully, like through my first few clients who like really opened my eyes that like, okay, yes, this is all possible. I still have more work to do. I need to dig in. Everything shifted and I was able to sell the business. I was able to get out of the spa world and dig deeper into, okay, I'm ready to stop for me it was hiding behind something that was so easy for me that I was like, no, no, no. The truth is that I'm really great at building businesses. I'm great at helping people be leaders and to grow to their next potential. And that's what I can do now outside of these walls because it was sort of done in that world. And it called me back home. It made me be a stronger mom. It made me be a better wife, a better, you know, person in so many ways because I stopped saying that it was everything else outside of me. It was really about the decisions that I made about my own identity and my own programming that were holding me back.
Segues into my next question, which is a little more personal. What do you notice in yourself when you're not aware or present in your patterns versus when you are? So you show up as the better mom, but like,
Mhm.
can you elaborate reactions, choices, emotional patterns, energy, relationships, like
Sure.
all of the above, I would imagine, obviously.
Yeah, I think when I'm disconnected from my own sense of awareness, I feel myself really shift outside of my center. It's like everything's sort of speeding up. I feel like I have no time. Everything feels like it's running away. And I overhold things, meaning I hold everyone's stuff for them. I overthink about things. I'm trying to think my way through my next move, or I start carrying things that were never mine to carry. And there's this pull towards this like pressure, urgency, and like over responsibility. But when I'm really grounded in the sense of awareness that is possible, that I've created this, like, understanding now, there's a completely different relationship with this leadership and life. It's about having more trust in the process, more trust in myself, more trust in, like, wait, taking a step back, taking a beat, taking a breath. There's more clarity and, like, okay, wait, you're trying to hold all of this because it's uncomfortable for them. And you're going to have to let them deal with their own experiences at this point. Your job is to guide them through it, not to hold and make it yours. And I now, am able to recognize this opportunity to make decisions from alignment over fear and stop forcing outcomes that start allowing everything that's aligned to just emerge. And the body, it kind of softens. I remember last year after I took this updated training course that I took, and I remember saying to myself, like, I actually really love myself. And I don't know if it was the first time in my life where I could truly recognize to the depths that, like, I actually really like who I am. And there's this opportunity that a lot of people will never have. and that like will break my heart, is this opportunity to say that they truly are so full of themselves. And that's the magic. Like that's the gift. It's like be so full of yourself from that divine channeled sense and watch the magic that takes place because it will change not just the mental game of how oh, I love myself or I can say it, but this deep innate sense of like, no, like I'm made for big things. I love my life. I love myself. And that shifts the entire frequency from what you operate in.
Absolutely. And to say that you love yourself comes from a place of truly understanding who you are and being authentically yourself. And it took me, I'll be vulnerable for a moment and transparent that it has taken me a little bit in order to get there. It took a number of years in my younger lives. I'm going to be 45 next week. Yay me. To realize like, oh my gosh, I have no idea who I am in my earlier, 20s and 30s. And what do I like? What do I really like?
Mm,
Because Jaime likes it. What is authentic to me that hasn't been handed to me to say, this is how we do this. These are the rules. These are the guidelines.
yeah.
And I went through such a portion of my life just following these because that's what was handed to me for information. And at a certain point, and with your help along the way, I have learned to uncover the steps to realize, okay, it is time to get to know myself.
Hmm.
And it is a night and day difference. So, if we're talking a lot about awareness and being conscious in our growth, what does that actually look like in real life and not theory? What
Hmm.
does somebody do differently, or what changes first?
Hmm. Just going back to your point before I answer this question, that shift of identity of who am I and what do I like
Yeah.
is, I feel like one of those first entry points into this work. It's like
Mhm.
I don't even know who I am anymore because maybe children, maybe family, maybe career, maybe demands, maybe life. I've been told my whole life how to be a good girl, do the things, right? But that struck a chord, Jamie. So I just want to say, like, you're so right. Everyone is in that space of like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, if you're on a date night, you get to pick where dinner's at. Do you have a preference? Do you know what you love? Like, are you leading with that? And is it safe for you to say, I feel like Thai food, knowing that maybe the person you're going on a date with doesn't even really like Thai food, but that they are willing to have Thai food with you because they know how much it means to you. Although it sounds silly, this is sort of the foundation of where this sort of comes from. But to get back on track to answering your question, the conscious growth in real life idea to me is really about this idea of interruption, interrupting your automatic responses or interrupting your inherited patterns, interrupting the identity that you've consciously or maybe unconsciously built around survival. It can look like pausing before you say yes when your body actually means no. It looks like saying yes to pizza when you really want Thai food. It looks like no longer trying to um, connect the dots between productivity and worth. And it looks like choosing clarity over chaos, even when chaos feels more familiar. Awareness becomes practical when your choices actually start changing. And conscious growth is not just about becoming something better, it's about becoming more honest and clear with yourself. It's the willingness to see the patterns and the identities, the emotional attachments, the inherited beliefs, and shaping this reality that you have beneath the surface. Because real conscious growth looks like you're going to catch yourself before you have this automatic reaction. It's choosing different, even when it's unfamiliar, and then probably questioning yourself the whole night afterwards, but allowing yourself to really outgrow these identities that once kept you safe. And if everything is only the energy you give to it, you get to be, again, in control of deciding that this can be safe. I can allow this to happen. It's about really learning how to hold that vision without controlling the outcome and understanding that this future that you're trying to create requires a different version of you to hold it. And that version is only built now through this awareness, identity work, your courageous choice, and this repeated level of embodiment. Because I guarantee you, it's not going to happen the first time you try it on. And you might not even like it the first time you try it on. You might feel like it's a little weird. There might be tweaks. I remember the first time that I manifested peace in my business. And I was like, I just want peace. Oh my gosh, I felt like I was running like a crazy lady. All I wanted peace. It was quiet, Nobody needed me. Nobody wanted me. It was probably my now dream life at this point. It's probably like, dang, girl. But I felt, because I was so caught up in those identities and in those stories, I felt so lost in that sense of peace because I didn't know how to just hold that space of being. And most people think that growth is about adding more. When people show up to this work, they're often like, I need this. I gotta get this. I'm growing. I'm doing all the things. But what's been proven through this space is that growth is often about subtraction. It's less performative. There's less proving. There's less force. There's less
Preach.
abandoning yourself in order to maintain this external, you know, version of this success. And leaders who will shape the future of what they're working towards are going to be the ones who are willing to lead themselves first.
Yes, and I noticed that growth is a way to summarize for that I like to summarize it. It's you've removed the chaos. It's not to
Hmm.
say things don't get hectic sometimes or busy or tricky or whatever, but the chaos. And
Yeah,
we love the things that we might be juggling. And that juggling doesn't necessarily mean like plates are spinning in the air now and something's going to fall, but more a juggle of a balance to make sure that we're giving balance to each area of our lives that we
hmm,
love, that are
for sure.
important to us. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I love
See it.
that.
I think you see it too, that people come in and they're expecting some grand change, and yet it's just like
Right.
the life keeps happening. Things keep moving. Everything is working. It's expanding, and yet everything becomes easier and more effortless because the clarity is there, the grounding force is there. This ability of understanding and awareness has created this tolerance for you to not become emotionally attached to those programs and to be able to access whatever it is that comes on the other side of this.
Yeah, so I'm going to slightly answer my next question, at least from my a piece of it. But I have was always waiting for like the light, I call it a light switch, like the obvious, the light was off, now it's on. When
Mhm.
am I going to be consciously aware? When is this growth happening? When am I awakened? When am I like, when? What is it? Show me the sign. I want the light switch. And I woke up one morning, probably after one of our many conversations, and I was like, holy shit, I'm in it. I get it. It happened, and I had no idea. And I think
Yeah.
we're still processing through it. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think throughout life, you're constantly ebbing and flowing. I don't think just because
Mhm.
we've reached this higher conscious place of awareness or growth, then we're done either. It's going to be forever evolving with us as
Mhm.
well. So, one of my questions was, how do we notice these patterns? Are they internal? So for me, I was waiting for a very physical or specific pattern, like that light bulb moment, turning on the light switch. But how do these patterns awareness show up? Also, like, do they show up physically in the body, energy, daily habits? What is your perspective on that?
Mhm. Something that my teachers taught me through this work was that you just notice what's different. So everyone says, "What's the homework?" Everyone wants to do something. It's like, "What's the homework?" Right? After a call, and it's like, just believe
Now what?
that
What
things
do
have
I
been
do? Tell
changed.
me. We want a
And
script. We want an outline.
yeah, and it's just having this awareness, like be aware. Be aware of yourself, of your responses, of how you handle things, your capacity for more, what would typically maybe send you over the edge or whatever. And you're just like, okay, we got this. And most people will attribute that to saying, okay, that's somatic, that's nervous system regulation. But the conscious programming underneath of that layer of execution has been shifted and changed. We've cleared the programs, we've activated the new potentials, we've downloaded that new consciousness so that there can be an action and a movement forward. And I think what you're talking about with this like light bulb moment is that everyone North Stars their spiritual journey. When I reach the summit, when I've reached the top, when I've experienced that space of enlightenment, but the truth is that it is like an ever evolving journey, and I think that that's something that people have to be aware of is that there is no destination or finish line. We are here to evolve, and how much you evolve in this lifetime, in this reality, is completely your choice. You will continue to either continue down certain paths, programs, relationships, and dynamics with people, and the ability to transcend those relational dynamics will determine, by weight of some form of measurement how much you've essentially evolved, or how much you've healed, or how much you've come to experience something else. But the truth is that most people want to experience their growth in their mind. They want to see something different, but the body will always tell the truth before the mind catches up. And so when people are experiencing this type of like friction, this kind of like, it's more so the pull into this work. It's like, okay, wait, what does that feel like? It's going to be this like unprocessed pressure, emotional suppression, chronic hypervigilance, this like people pleasing, perfectionism. And they all continue to become more physical programs until we reach the state of burnout, fatigue, tension, inflammation. We're not sleeping. We're anxious all the time. Our nervous system can't get regulated. And everyone's trying to heal physically within their minds, right? Everyone's got an affirmation or some type of physicality that we follow in this external reality. But there's less about it being able to be pulled internally inside of themselves. And if they do, it's likely compartmentalized. I went to a retreat. I felt really good. I had a day at the spa. I felt really great. I took away all the external factors, which are all just mirrors of your own reality, mirroring you back to you, your husband, your children, your clients, your work schedule, your coworkers, your superiors. They are all just mirroring these little parts of you. And the truth is that they love you enough to be able to make you feel so uncomfortable so that you transition and change. So that you recognize, hey, this is something about me inside of me that I desire to see different on. And that physical healing that people try to embark on when they feel uncomfortable, or they leave, or they walk away, or right now I'm seeing a lot of people blowing their lives up. They've left their relationships. They've walked away from their jobs. They've changed careers. They've done all the things because externally they were so uncomfortable and they couldn't hold the capacity. They were confused about what this meant about me. And so they said, this must be the wrong place to go. And it couldn't be further from the truth. It's that opportunity now to feel so uncomfortable and to experience the next level of yourself that is being mirrored back to you to be able to expand internally and do the work and shift the consciousness so that you can be free from it, not externally, but internally.
We've seen that motivational quote, we're here to enjoy the journey instead of that North Star, that summit, that peak, that place we're trying to get to. But
Mhm.
the journey is longer than the North Star or that end point. And really understanding this aspect and embodying it is what is going to help you enjoy all the steps that lead you towards that final,
Yeah.
or at
And
least
that
one
it's
part
not,
of the final destination. There'll be
yeah.
others.
It's not bad. We think that when things come up in our healing journeys too, we're experiencing along the path, things are coming up, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, what did I do wrong? Everything's always, what did I do wrong? What if nothing was right or wrong, or good or bad? And that's just a made up story that we've used to keep those programs in place. And now that things are coming up, it's just like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting clue. Okay, I really love that this is happening. Clearly, there's something more that's trying to catch my attention. And if we think about that formless to form creation, everything's coming in as a program, an energy, an entity, a frequency. It's coming in into that physical reality. And I always say, if it's reached that physical part of your body now, it's from the past. It's not current. It's not giving you direction on where you're going. It's reached that last physical place where it's going to be birthed into reality for you to choose that final step out of it. And so, oftentimes, when the physical symptoms get really big through this work and things start to rise up, because there is a little bit of a wave through this work, when people jump in, they're like, okay, I'm ready. And they go, man, this is amazing. And we're climbing. And then we reach that pinnacle again. And we're like, hey, let's go to that next layer of it. Everything shifts again. I'm like, keep going. Let's keep pulling it out. And on the other side of it, I always say everything that you want is on the other side of that level of being uncomfortable, right? So it's like be willing to hold that capacity long enough to get to the other side and be willing to be courageous enough to know and to decide that that's the truth, that this is for you. This is good. There's nothing bad here.
Yeah, I don't know if this is an appropriate example, but I'm just going to insert it here. One of I have you and I have been talking about me creating this summit.
Mhm.
And as soon as I decided to move forward with it, there was one thing after the other that was starting to become a little uh, speed bump, I'll call it. Nothing to
Mhm.
stop it, but little speed bumps along the way. But what I now have understood looking back at it, because we live life forward, but we can really recognize it and understand it better backwards, is it was pushing me into the right directions.
Mhm.
So closed doors meant a different door that opened.
Mhm.
Ironically, I had it's a little embarrassing. My computer was hacked. It's embarrassing because my husband is in cybersecurity, right? So I anyway, I was hacked and I was like, oh my gosh, this is all of my information for the summit. I'm going to do all of my lives on this. But in that happening, I met an individual through IT that scrubbed, cleaned my computer. And he's the one that basically laid out Restream for me, helped me understand it, connect it. So
Mm.
it opened the door to the right person. I thought it was a bad negative thing. It was the other side of the stone again, right?
Mhm.
So, and we've moved past it. We're on, and I'm even better for it, dare I say, that,
Yeah.
these things happen and come up. And I know that wasn't exactly what you were talking about, but that was my
No,
little
but
experience
it
from
resonates. It
it.
works.
But let's back up to gosh, I don't know how far back. I have a feeling you've had a part of this as your experience, your journey, who you are, obviously forever inside of you. But at what point did you realize this work wasn't just personal? You weren't observing these patterns, recognizing things for yourself, but that it needed to be a part of how you support others. At
Mhm.
what point did you realize that? Where did this stem from?
When people started saying, "Can you help me? Can we do this? What are we doing?" And my innate capacity to hold other people has always been my superpower. Like
Yeah.
I love small business. I love entrepreneurs. I love business dynamics. I love relational dynamics. I always have. I've been fascinated by business my whole life. My grandparents had a company. I remember just being obsessed with having a business, having a company. When I babysat, it was like stacks on stacks of money. Like I just loved being of purpose. And there was a lot in that, and I think just to speak to this work, it's like there was a lot in that that had to be broken down first in order for this to really land in the level of depth and impact that it has. Because so much of that was about I was useful, I was needed, I was a helper, so therefore I was worthy, and it brought me deeper and deeper, my journey of having my own business times two, three, four, five, six, you name it. There's been so many renditions of it, but it's allowed me to really recognize that I kept reinforcing these patterns and programs with those external creations. And so I was using this strategy in this business to reinforce, okay, well, if they're not coming here, they must not like me, then it must be something about me. And it had nothing to do with me. And I wanted more help. I wanted someone outside of me to tell me what to do. I wanted someone to give me that clear direction. And it never showed up in that way. It was always in people really guiding me back towards myself. That was the work that I had to do. And I recognized that what if more people truly recognized that there was no strategy coming to save them? That this identity work was no longer separate from the success of my business. That people aren't failing because they lack strategy. They're struggling because their internal world could not sustain or even hold what they were trying to build externally. And so it was like, wait, if I can do this, if I can nearly have blown up my marriage, blown up my life, blown up my businesses, walked away from all the things externally, and then recognized that that all just called me way deeper back into myself, and now I can use this as my superpower. No wonder I'm obsessed with business and leadership and teams and development, and use that to get people to go forth into their purpose. I want them to know that level of freedom through the work that I did. It's not been easy. I've been doing this work for over 12 years for personal, like my own personal work, and then sharing it with others in the last six. And it is it is such a blessing to be able to hold that level of perspective when going through something. And that's what I want everyone else to experience. And if I could give, someone the most perfect plan, the most perfect structure, the most perfect growth strategy, um, and that's what most coaches do. That's most consultants come in and they're like, here's all the pawns. We're going to move them into all the right places. The truth is that underneath of that, even if I thought it was the best laid plans, they're still operating from overproving, people pleasing, a fear of visibility, this fear of success, and this fear of being misunderstood, or an identity that they've built around survival, or eventually, you know, their own capacity. Their business would most definitely only be able to reflect and hold that. The pressure returns, the burnout returns, the inconsistency would return. And my own experience changed how I approach this sense of leadership, how I stopped seeing businesses as only this operational little entity of just if we do all the things right, everyone goes to business school, they have to be smarter than me, they must know more than me. But the truth is that when you're working through this lens of the divine and through spirit and conscious creation, we are able to transmute, transform, and transcend every level of this impact, of this experience, of not only just using business to leverage your family, your life, everything that you desire, but to change the world because it's the most impactful place. You think about the people from the top down strategy, you change your employees, you change your team, you change their families' lives, and the ripple effect becomes so large. Then you look at the clients and the products and the things that change from that point, and that ripple effect becomes greater and greater. And your business will always reflect your relationship with yourself. It will always reflect your capacity. It will always reflect your nervous system, your boundaries, your self-worth, your ability to trust, and your willingness to be seen. And especially for women in leadership, it's impossible to ignore because many women have been conditioned to lead through this idea of overextension. It's where I was at. And so to nurture everyone else at the expense of themselves and to overcarry emotionally while still performing professionally. And so we get to this point where we're really holding everything together. And when we integrate this conscious awareness, this identity work, this nervous system identity regulation, sorry, and energetic alignment into this leadership strategy, people are more clear. They make decisions faster. Their businesses become more sustainable. They know themselves again because they actually are responding to who they are, not who they were told to be. They've softened. They have better relationships with their people. They see more clients because they have this opportunity to be more receptive towards where people are at. And their lives start to live in the sense of congruency with what they're building so that every level is successful. The future of business isn't just strategy, it's awareness and embodiment and the ability to lead without abandoning yourself. And that's the magic in the process that I think was my journey through this and understanding what my impact was. I've always had it. I walk into a room and people are like, oh, she's here, oh, Ellie's here. And my face always tells a story and I have things to say. And people are always like, oh God, like you have everything going on. Tell me what you do. Like I remember going places, people would be like, you are a boss. Tell me what you boss. Like, what do you do? And that's innate to me. But the idea of being my own self, the idea of holding my own, while also holding my family of five. My husband has a company. My children are high level kids. They're into all the things, it requires a level of us that satisfies. Of course, I created that family dynamic because it satisfied my need to be in control, in power, all of the things. And it helped me to heal so that I could help other people to do the same in their own lives.
I think in order when we want more, let's think of it as a practitioner in its most simplest term. One of the things that a practitioner asks for is I want full books, I want more clients. So if we
Hmm.
want more, if we want to hold more, we have to think of ourselves as the container that is holding more. And so working on ourselves is
Hmm.
really what's going to give that expansion, it
Hmm.
attracting after we've worked on that particular piece. If somebody
Hmm.
listening realizes they're stuck in patterns then and they want that expansion, where do they begin without feeling overwhelmed? And we only have about 8 minutes left, and I want to throw in where to find you. So I'm going to try to pick one more question after this, if possible. But I
Got
just
it.
want to give you a quick time frame too.
Thank you. I think if someone realizes that they're stuck in patterns, the first step is just to not rush into fixing. We always rush into fixing because that fixing step reinforces the fact that something's right or wrong or good or bad. It's more positive for someone to slow down enough to observe themselves. Most people become aware of a pattern and move to this judgment. Why am I doing this? I should be doing better. I should be doing something different. I thought I already healed through this. This is insane. And that shame keeps the pattern hidden, and awareness will reveal them. And so the beginning of this whole strategy is learning how to witness yourself without abandoning yourself and to start paying attention to the moments that repeatedly activate you. So it's like, where do I overreact, overgive, shrink, seek approval still? Where do I overexplain myself to try to give myself more presence? Where do I disconnect from myself in order to maintain connections with others? And that's just about developing more information. So don't ask, how do I stop this? What is this protecting? When did I learn this? Is this necessary? When did I believe this? It's truly just about the opportunity to slow down enough. The goal is not perfection. Sit in the discomfort. It's not punishment. Know that being willing enough to sit in that space and move through it to the other side, because everything you want is on that other side. And you now get to choose. Everything is only the energy you give to it. So this is good. This is helping me. Today in our community group, I said, I love this. Like, I love this. I'm loving this. That is the phrase that will get us through so that we hold more capacity for what it is that comes next, so that we can choose differently, effortlessly, by not making or forcing things happen, by allowing them to take shape.
Do you suggest journaling? Do you suggest like meditating? And I don't mean like sitting in a corner meditating, like going on a walk and reflecting, that type of meditative, quiet, alone time? Or what is
Mhm.
the best way you suggest, or what just works for you for like looking back and seeing those patterns?
Mhm. I think it's to look to the future, to borrow from the future of you. So it's like pulling the energy to your future self, to maybe your villain era, if you will, and saying, okay, this, and everyone says, why villain? Like, why do we want to be bad? And I think because sometimes it is so good to be bad, and there's no moral consciousness attached to money, and people often, it's about money. They want more money, they want more clients, they want more impact, they want all those things. But this ability to be more villainous in their lives likely gives clues to where they are still overcompensating in the identity spaces. And so it's like, imagine that villain-like characteristic of yourself. Imagine that most impactful, powerful, presence-filled person. How does she or he show up? What does that look like? And then how does that person think? How do they operate? What decision choices do they make? Where do they come from? What does their family structure look like? What does their home structure look like? What does their business look like? What do people think about them? And that will start to show you the gaps to that awareness and that space. By borrowing that future self, we're not going back. I don't care about where it all came from. Sure, we do past life clearing in this work, but I don't care about where we went in the past. It's more so about how I'm going to cut that now and transmute it into the future. And so it's really about borrowing that energy of the future self. Who is future me that has all of the things that I desire, that is exactly as I can see this clear vision of myself? And if you don't know the answers, hold on to them and let them wait. And it's through quiet reflection. It can be, that can be journaling if you like to journal. It can be through visualization if you like to visualization. Perhaps it's even walking, maybe there's music or songs that bring it out. Maybe you're dancing. It's like there's a lot of different ways to play, and I love that you've brought them all into this beautiful summit, to have different points of access, as different people will find there's different things that work for them. But it's really about, for me in this work of this conscious growth and identity space, to find that future version of you, everything that you're like, I wish I had, or if everything was perfect, what would that be? Take her, borrow her, study her, ask her questions, and then just start living like her and collapse the timelines. You can do that. That's real.
I love that because a lot of times we look to the past for patterns to see what we can
Mhm.
change, but shifting that perspective and looking towards the goal.
Mhm.
And I quickly reference like visualizing. I do love to visualize what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, what colors are in the room, how it's set up, what
Mhm.
it smells like, all the way down to its most tangible moment. So I can really relate and resonate with that particular example. But
Mhm.
Emilee, there's so much more, frankly, I want to ask you, but we are out of time.
Mhm.
I want to open it up to anything. Did we miss anything that you want to interject or offer as a last little bit before we learn how to work with you in the future and where to find you?
Mhm. I believe that this level of awareness and that this work, this space that we can hold here changes the sustainability of everyone's businesses. And when we start to really become self-aware in our own patterns, and especially around this overgiving, don't look to the past. Really look to the future. And it's not about hard boundaries. It's about love. It's about softness. It's about a gentleness and about an ease. And I think a lot of people get hard in this spiritual space. A lot of the programming is get hard, create hard boundaries, stop doing the things, stop, stop, stop. And like, although, yes, certain things will go, it's just softening to this point of just allowing and letting go of the judgments because recognizing that everything is only the energy that we give to it, and you are in charge of that. And when you feel powerless in your space, that will be the most transformative space is recognizing, okay, what energy am I holding on this? How can we, shift this? What's coming up for me? And be willing to sit in that space long enough with the faith and being courageous enough to look at the truth and hold it will
So
really create
amazing.
some
Thank you.
opportunities for you. Thanks,
Thank you for
Haley.
your wisdom. Thank you for your time. Again, this just wasn't long enough, but it was still, I feel really impactful and full of so much good information. Share again your handles, where we can find you, where you like to spend most of your time, at least in your main website.
For sure. So you can find me at Emilee Fernandes on Instagram as well. You can find access to all of my coaching programs and links there. If Instagram isn't your vibe, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. And my website is coaching.emiliefernandez.com. And I know Jamie has the links on the summit page. And inside of that space, you'll find my one-off coaching sessions, but more importantly, you'll find the Empire Business Retainer programs, which create lasting transformation and change, and as well the team sessions, which are really quite magical and popular.
So worth it. You're really investing in yourself and yourself today and your future self. So again, thank you so much, Emilee. Thank you everybody for joining us live. If any questions come up, please put it in the comments. We will check the areas that they stream and we will do our best to get back to you. And until next time, Emilee, thank you.